South African business leaders have made a grim forecast for President Cyril Ramaphosa that the jobless rate could reach 38.1% by 2030 if no urgent actions are taken on energy, logistics, and crime crisis. Currently at 32.9%, the high unemployment rate already puts South Africa among the worst globally. The business groups, together with the presidency, have announced progress made in introducing some of the initiatives to revive the floundering economy and restore investors' confidence. They have also proposed measures including optimizing the diesel supply chain, supporting agri-businesses, power plants, and combating crime, including corruption, aiming to achieve 5% economic expansion and to a 28% unemployment by 2030. This morning, joining me from Johannesburg for this conversation, I have Xhanti. Payi is an economist and senior manager, PwC South Africa. It's nice to have you join us on the show.
It's very good to be with you.
All right. Now, South African business leaders are worried that the jobless rate could rise to about 38.1%. How did the country get to this current position where unemployment rate is set to be on the rise?
Well, I think there's a number of challenges that the South African economy has been facing. The first problem, of course, is there's been attributed to skills. As we know that the economy is changing and has been changing for quite some time, as the global economy has. And therefore, some sectors have started to decline. So we know that the manufacturing sector is no longer, hiring or contributing to employment as it used to, as the, people use machines and also other, technological advances that we've seen. This is true of many other industries. And we also know that South African youth in particular are not as well trained to meet the demands of the new economy, the needs in terms of, the skills that we need in energy, in technical jobs, in engineering, technology and the like. And so what you're seeing, therefore, is the lack of absorption of these in particular, where unemployment rate is as high as about 50% and has been actually even exceeded 60% rate for South African youth. So the one area has been the skills problem. Then, of course, some of the issues that we've already highlighted in your report, when you talk about the energy constraints that we're facing, and that's hampering investment in the economy to create growth. We've also seen, infrastructure, logistics, the train system where we're not able to deliver in terms of the mining sector, which also is a big employer in South Africa. So those problems that we're seeing in the logistics system has also hampered employment of young people and people in general. So there's a number of issues that have been, and I think this report really speaks to how you actually resolve those things that have been an impediment to employment in the South African economy.
All right, we'll also talk about the issue of energy, but still talking about skills. Is it all about skills shortage, or because we've heard speculations around skill mismatch, those who are underskilled, and of course, those who are not actually qualified for this kind of jobs, getting kind of jobs that would help them scale up their career, as it were. So where do we actually place these skills deficits?
Well, I think that's quite directed. I think we think both sides are important. The skills mismatch really talk to that we may be raising skills where young people, for example, are getting educated in fields where there isn't that much of a need, and that the jobs that are growing are very different from what we're actually training for. So that really speaks to the mismatch. But also, the skills shortage actually speaks to this idea that we have a lot of people, for example, investors are coming into the country and they may be looking for different kinds of skills that we're not able to actually deliver. So this mismatch in the skills shortages really speaks to the same thing, but that we may be growing some skills, but they're not matched, and we actually then lead to the shortages that we talk about. So that's very, very important in terms of how we actually have to think about the skills. And then I think what you also referred to is people that not being hired for the right things. I think that's what many people have seen in the public sector, not so much the private sector, where the public sector has had these challenges of what they call capacity government. So, where you have local government, national government, where you may find people are, getting jobs that they may not be able to be equipped to perform. And that itself has been an impediment, or has had a negative effect in terms of growth and investment in the economy, and also supporting those parts of the economy that require the skills in those sectors. So that's very, very important, and both things are actually valid.
All right. Now, energy crisis, logistics, surfing crime rates were also pointed out as areas needing critical interventions. Now, how and why do these constitute major impediments to joblessness in South Africa? And what has been government efforts so far in tackling them? Because we know that investors who may want to put their money into an economy would not want to do that if that economy is having issues with power crisis, there is a fraud, perpetration of fraud, corruption, and security issue is also a major concern. So what has been the efforts of government, and how and why are these variables also a major concern for South Africa?
Well, you're quite right that the major concern is really through investors, because we need investment in South Africa. We don't have enough savings locally to be able, to grow the economy. So that's very important. So investors have been worried, very concerned about that, because remember, if this means that there's an increase in the cost of doing business, if you have to come into a country where you have to provide your own generators, you have to provide your own energy systems, your own water systems, then that increases the cost of doing business. So therefore, it makes the country unattractive, because then that means that reduces the return that you get as an investor. So investors have been very concerned about that. That's also true in the country in terms of security, that if you have to provide extra security for your workers, for your infrastructure, that also then burdens investment, therefore the return. So it is something really that investors have been highlighting that is of concern. So certainly both those things are important. But I think one of the things that the PwC also raised that I think is critical is how we are actually creating that employment. Over the past 10 years, some of the work that we did at PwC, we saw that over the past 10 years, growth has not been enough to actually absorb the young people, or at least the people who are looking for work. Remember, the things that we want is not just about investment, but we want investment in the right kinds of sectors that can actually also absorb young people and absorb the unskilled, so that actually the growth itself, the investment in the growth, actually needs to invest to grow to jobs. And one of the things that we highlighted in our reports is certainly that we actually think that situation could be worse than 2030, that actually unemployment could rise to 40% if we actually don't grow in the right kinds of ways. And I think what you're highlighting, therefore, is important to say that we have to make sure that we're attracting investment to the right sectors, and we're making sure that the government is doing the right thing. So one of the things that we've been doing is something called Operation Green. And here it's been trying to deal with some of the challenges that are faced in terms of the impediments in the public sector. So, for example, licenses for water, being able to gain skills. One of the things that we are struggling with is skills, but how do we import those skills into the country? So, making sure that the visa system works in a way that we can get the skills, and then those skills can be transferred to South Africans, so that actually we move faster in the creation of this mismatch that we've been talking about, the shortage of skills. So there have been some of these things that have been done. The government is working very hard on energy supplementation, energy regulations, logistics. There's been a new paper on logistics on the rail system, so that the rail system works better. So all of these things are important, and that government has been actually trying to push for. And some of them are taking longer, of course, than others. But I think one of the important ones is this collaboration that you referred to in terms of how the private sector and the public sector work together to make sure that they can actually meet some of the challenges that we've been highlighting. And we think that actually that private and public sector collaboration is going to be key if we're going to create employment and actually grow the economy.
Yes, I was actually going to come to the issue of the rail system, because it's been said that deteriorating rail and port services, coupled with corruption, have led to slow growth in the continent's most industrialized economy. So I'm so curious as to why there are incessant attacks on the rail system, and why is it that the fight against corruption seems to be a daunting task, as the case may be, for the South African government. But of course, if we are going to have a PPP come into place, both the public and the private sector channeling their resources and their investments in the right areas to grow the economy, but then we're seeing this kind of attacks, and we're seeing monies being stolen and profits not being made. Of course, it will be a dent on the encouragement, or in a way, it will discourage investors or those who may want to partner with the government to also want to plug their monies into these sectors. So why are we having challenges in these two areas?
This is a long-standing challenge, and you're quite right to raise it. And it's been something that has been discussed in the country for quite some time. I think you may have learned, or you may have known for the past many years, we have had something called state capture. It's really many private interests were able to undermine the work of the public sector, the work of government, the work of police, the work of prosecutions, authorities, and the work of the justice system. So that has been a major, major problem that has been highlighted. So that period in the recent past where actually the private interests were able to hijack very key and critical crime-fighting institutions in the country has undermined that process, and that's why we are partly why we're here. And then, of course, there are other issues. The unemployment itself and the poverty in the country has some impact and some effect in terms of the crime that we're seeing, where people have been discouraged, they're not able to find employment, and therefore they tend to crime as a way to live. And so these two things that have worked together are the things that business is now trying to work with government to resolve. So you have seen in what we're discussing now that the private sector is offering its assistance, its capacity to help fight crime, because that's going to be something that's going to be very critical if we are actually to fight crime, is to actually work together, both the public sector and the private sector. In any case, much of the corruption also, as we know, has also been in cahoots where the public officials work with private sector people, to steal from the public sector, to steal from the government, or to then procurement and other laws. So it's very important that these two parties, both from the private sector and the public sector, work together. We think that that is going to be important. So again, that collaboration where both the private sector and the public sector keep each other accountable, keep each other honest to be able to move forward, given the challenges we've had in the recent history, where actually the private sector has participated in some of the undermining of key institutions of crime and actually added to the to corruption and to the crime that we've seen.
I'd like to just get your candid opinion as per jobs being created. We know that government may not be able to create as many jobs as are needed part-time, but then with the support, as you've said, of the private sector, they might be able to increase the amount of employability for the teeming youths. So I'd like to find out, looking at the private sector, have they really done enough to create jobs for the teeming youths? Or you would say that there have been impediments to that, or maybe the support they're getting from government has not been optimal enough? Or you would say maybe the environment, the working environment has not been supportive enough for these private sectors to create jobs and to expand their businesses, whereby we can have more youths get employed into those ventures?
All the things that you mentioned are true. And one of the things that in one of our reports, actually, as we built at PwC, is that how does the private sector and the public sector work together, even in the creation of the skills? Remember, you need an education system and a skills development system that works, but that skills development system has to be very targeted to the needs of the private sector teaching. So the private sector and the public sector have to work together to say, what should schools and universities and technical and colleges be working towards, the skills that the private sector wants. Then the private sector is also to provide the kinds of training that is post-school education that allows them that skills development to work. And that it has to be open enough, to work also sometimes to support young people in rural areas. So the collaboration between the private sector and the public sector is very, very important. Very right at the beginning in terms of the skills development, because it's the private sector that needs those skills. And so that mismatch can only be defeated if the public sector and the private sector are training the right kinds of skills, even at school level. That the participation and the investment in skills, as we know, that the world of work is changing, right? And the private sector needs new kinds of skills. So that investment in the new skills and the training and the retraining of people who have been previously sectors that are now going under or being done away with because of the advances we're seeing in technology, in climate change, and other advances that are happening in our economy as it shifts. That's going to need the private sector to work very hard and collaborate with government to make sure that we are training the right people and we are producing the right people. So you're quite right that it's not one or the other, that actually both the sectors are going to work together. So investment, and also know that the public sector as budget or finances are quite constrained because the economy is not growing. So we probably need a lot of investment that is going to come from the private sector, working with the public sector to be able to escalate or scale up the investment in skills, and especially skills for young people. And I think perhaps also taking chances on young people. The private sector has not been, as active in terms of taking chances on young people should have been over time. So we really think so that what is really going to be important is that kind of collaboration. And some of the work that we've been able to do, and we are doing supporting universities to also reform themselves, to be able to reach and to be capable of producing the right kinds of skills that are needed in a world that has changed, that is more focused now on artificial intelligence, in more technical skills, in science, in engineering, so that actually we can bring forward a lot of the skills that we need, so that actually people that are able to invest in South Africa because we have the right kinds of skills.
Skills development to actually bridge skills gap, and that's one area that needs to focus. Now, the business groups projected that there's the need for a successful addressing of other economic constraints, and that is the only way that economic expansion by 5% can be achieved, and unemployment rate will decline by 28% by the year 2030. Now, what areas do you feel that the government should be looking at in terms of investments, and how critical do you believe they should be about that? Because we're looking at how achievable and ambitious this can be for the government moving forward.
Energy is one key area, and it's important because actually it supports not just big business. You would have seen that this discussion was around, organized business, and that tends to be big CEOs and big companies that are involved. But it's also important for small businesses that are actually entering, or entrepreneurial businesses that don't have themselves the capacity to invest in energy. And so, government and the private sector in the big business should be able to invest in that, to make sure that smaller businesses are also able then to participate in a working and functional energy system. Also, too, in terms of supporting local governments, one of the key problems that I think you alluded to at the beginning around the skills in local government. So that's going to be important, and this group should be able to say support how to support skills in local government, so that local government is able to produce water, electricity, is able to support smaller businesses in terms of creating the right kind of environment for smaller businesses to thrive, because it is smaller businesses or small and medium enterprises, we call them, that are able to create more jobs, and employ people in their local community. So that's going to be important in terms of the outcomes that you need. So it's important to think about big business also supporting government in actually making sure that the right kind of environment has been created that is supportive of smaller businesses. And then we know that one of the key things also will be how then these bigger businesses, smaller businesses, interact with each other. So there's all of these nuances that are quite important, but it's quite important at the moment that we resolve the key challenges around energy and water and logistics, because that's the way in which once we are able to do that, smaller businesses themselves will be able to thrive, even though they may not be around the kinds of big tables.
All right. I'd like you to also react to this certain rumor about South Africans not really wanting to look for jobs. So I'd like to find out if that is true, if it's a cultural deficit on the part of South Africans, whereby we have foreigners come into the country and establish businesses, grow the economy, but we have indigents of the same country who might not really be keen or enthusiastic in looking for jobs to earn a living. How true is that? And if that is true, is it a cultural deficit that may need to be dealt with?
There's not evidence of this at all. And you're quite right that there has been this myth or rumor that is like that. But you will see, if you are, for example, you are in Johannesburg on any given day, you will find that people are waking up very early in the morning to look for a job. But also, a lot of South Africa's population is still very rural and very poor. So looking for a job is also very difficult. Remember, to look for a job, you require to be able to wake up in the morning, go take a taxi into an urban area to be able to find work. If you are, many people cannot do that because of the problems many times with our ID system and in this country. You may know that IDs are a very important part of how you actually do it. Whereas, as we've seen globally, that people foreigners, for lack of a better word, are able to do better or experts are usually able to do better than locals. We find it in different communities around the world that those foreign communities tend to do better than locals. And there may be different sociological reasons for that that I may not be able to talk about today. But certainly that is taken. But one of the things that has been very helpful and helping promote people looking for work has been, the grants, the social grants that people are given, because it gives them some impetus to go out there and look for work because they can afford transport. They're able to actually help with the social system. So there is that, but it's important that we don't work on the basis of it, but that actually proper solutions are probably going to come where we work together to actually find solutions. It's not only true that many people, for example, will say foreigners are here to provide drugs and all sorts of things. When we know that many foreigners or foreign nationals who work in South Africa are very enterprising. They actually also have been very helpful in many ways to create employment rather than to destroy society. So these myths that are being bandied around are not particularly useful in terms of how we actually build communities, create work, and make sure that the economy continues to grow in a way that's inclusive and brings everybody in together.
Thank you so much for your submission this morning. Of course, it is hoped that the South African government will be able to do the needful. And of course, the public and the private sector, including the citizens, will be able to come together to foster an economic growth dream that so many people in the country are so much clamoring for at this particular time. Xhanti Payi, economist and senior manager, PwC South Africa, thank you so much for your time. All right, as South Africa grapples with the significant challenge of rising unemployment rates in the country, it is evident that proactive measures and innovative solutions are needed to address this pressing issue. The forecasted unemployment rate of 38.1% is a stark reminder of the urgent need for comprehensive interventions that prioritizes job creation, skills development, as our guest has said, and of course, economic recovery, very essential. We're going on a very short break. When we return, it will be time for international business stories. To stay with us.